The house was silent, the morning still, and I thought I was completely alone. A deep-seated need, one I'd ignored for months, was finally surfacing. But as I let my robe drop and settled into bed, I was oblivious. I had no idea I was being watched, no idea my son was about to walk in, and certainly no idea that his presence wouldn't be enough to make me stop. That it started like one of those calm weekends where nothing was supposed to happen. Just a quiet house, a cool breeze slipping through the kitchen window, and the sound of the fridge humming while I stood in my robe, pouring coffee into a chipped mug I didn't remember keeping. My son had come home the night before, dropping his bag by the stairs and hugging me the way people do when they don't know what to say but feel like they should. And I'd stood there, awkwardly patting his back, trying not to think about how long it had been since we'd had a moment that wasn't strained. He'd grown up, that was obvious. His face had filled out, his shoulders were broader, and there was something in the way he moved that didn't belong to a boy anymore. Confidence or maybe just distance. I wasn't sure which one scared me more. That morning I found myself glancing toward the hallway more than once, listening for footsteps that didn't come. He always slept in when he visited, and I told myself I wasn't waiting for him, just noticing. But the truth was, his presence changed the air in the house. It made things feel heavier. Or maybe that was just me. I sipped the coffee and leaned against the counter, my fingers tapping absently along the rim of the mug. The robe I wore had slipped open slightly, and the chill of the room brushed against my skin. I should have cared, should have gone upstairs to shower, to dress, to pretend everything was normal. But nothing felt normal lately. Not since the distance between me and my wife became something permanent we just stopped talking about. She'd been working out of state for months, calling less, texting like a stranger. I hadn't touched another body in so long, I wasn't even sure I remembered how. So when I finally went upstairs, when I closed the door to my room and let the robe fall to the floor, it wasn't because I was thinking of anyone in particular. It was neat, plain and simple. The kind that creeps up behind you and whispers, "You're alone," until you can't ignore it anymore. I laid back on the bed, letting my fingers drift lower. At first, I told myself I was just trying to relax, just unwind. But the second my mind began to wander to warm skin, to soft gasps, to the imagined heat of someone pressed against me, it all unraveled faster than I expected. The sheets were cool beneath me, but my skin burned. My breath quickened. I closed my eyes and let it take me, chasing that release like it was the only thing that could quiet the ache that had settled in my chest for months. And then the door opened. At first I didn't register it. Just a shift in air, a creak that didn't belong. But when I opened my eyes, half-lidded, caught in the middle of the act, there he was, standing in the doorway. My son. Frozen. His eyes widened as they locked with mine, and for a heartbeat that felt like an eternity, neither of us moved. My pulse slammed in my throat. My body went rigid, the blanket slipping awkwardly around my waist as I scrambled to cover myself, breath catching in my chest. No, no, no. What the hell? I blurted, my voice sharp and too loud in the silence. Ever heard of knocking? He didn't say anything, not right away. His hand was still on the doorknob, his mouth slightly parted like he'd meant to speak but forgot how. His gaze flicked down just for a second, then jerked back to my face. Sorry, he stammered, backing up a step. I didn't know you were. Jesus, get out, I snapped, but my voice cracked halfway through. Not anger. Embarrassment, shame, or something else. He lingered for a second too long, just stood there, breathing heavier than he should have been. And then he turned, pulling the door halfway closed, but then he stopped. And that pause unraveled me more than anything else. I just came to ask if you wanted anything from the store, he said, voice lower now, controlled, but there was something under it. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. My body was still betraying me, still buzzing from where I'd left myself off. Just go, I said, but even I could hear the lie in my voice. Because part of me didn't want him to. Part of me wondered what might have happened if I hadn't stopped, if he hadn't. He closed the door slowly. The latch clicked. I sat there in the silence after, chest heaving, skin flushed, heart pounding for all the wrong reasons. Or maybe all the right ones. I didn't know anymore. I thought that would be the end of it. That we'd never speak of it again. That he'd pretend he hadn't seen me, and I'd pretend I hadn't seen the look in his eyes, the way he didn't flinch, the way he stayed. But the story didn't end there. Because that night, long after dinner, after the dishes had been rinsed and the lights had dimmed and the house had settled into the kind of hush that only comes when everyone's supposed to be asleep, I heard footsteps outside my door. They stopped. Then came a knock. Just one. Soft. The knock wasn't loud. It was soft, barely a breath against the door, but it sliced clean through the stillness like a whisper you're not supposed to hear. I sat up too fast, my pulse still high from earlier, and for a second I thought maybe I'd imagined it. That my brain, already spiraling from what had happened hours earlier, had invented it to punish me, to twist the knife. But then it came again. One knock. Nothing more. My throat tightened as I glanced toward the door, the sheet clutched around my waist. The room still smelled like skin, like sweat and shame and something I didn't want to name. And yet, part of me moved slowly, against better judgment, toward the door as if I had no choice. I cracked it open. He was standing there in the dark, barefoot, hair messy from bed, one hand shoved into the pocket of his hoodie, the other hovering uncertainly at his side. "I couldn't sleep," he said, voice low, unreadable. "Not after seeing that. Not with you still in my head." His voice was quiet, measured, but not embarrassed. I didn't speak, just stared. Because what was I supposed to say? That I was sorry too? That I hadn't stopped? That I still hadn't finished? The moment he closed the door behind him, I'd laid back down and finished what I started, with him in my head now, not some faceless warmth. He looked up. Our eyes met. And there it was again. That pause. That look that didn't belong between a father and son. "You can't just barge in like that," I said, trying to sound stern, but my voice came out low, almost shaky. "I didn't mean to," he replied. "I wasn't trying to catch you doing anything. Didn't stop you from watching." His lips parted like he hadn't expected me to say it. Maybe he thought I'd pretend it didn't happen, that we'd laugh it off. But I wasn't laughing. I couldn't. He took a breath, glanced away, and then stepped back. I should go. But I didn't move, and neither did he. "You said you couldn't sleep," I said quietly. "So what, you thought you'd come here?" "I don't know," he admitted, voice dropping. "Maybe I just didn't want to be alone. That did something to me. Twisted something." I opened the door a little wider. "You can come in." He hesitated, looked down the hallway, then back at me. His jaw flexed once. Then he stepped in, closing the door behind him. The room felt smaller instantly, like the air had grown thicker just by having him inside it. He didn't sit, just stood near the edge of the bed, his hands sliding into his hoodie pockets as he rocked on his heels. "I keep thinking about it," he said finally. "About earlier." I stared at him, my chest tightening. "Don't?" He looked up. "Why not?" "Because it's not something we're supposed to talk about." But it happened. My mouth was dry. "Exactly." He stepped closer. Not much, just enough for the distance to feel dangerous. "I wasn't weirded out, you know?" "That's not the point." "Then what is?" I didn't have an answer. Because the truth was, I'd replayed that scene in my head at least a dozen times since it happened, and not once had I felt disgust. I felt everything else: heat, shame, hunger. But not revulsion. Not the kind I was supposed to feel. He sat down beside me, not too close, but close enough for the mattress to shift beneath us. He looked straight ahead, not at me, his voice barely audible when he spoke again. "I've always wondered if you were lonely." The words hit harder than I expected. I swallowed. "Why would you say that?" "Because you always seem like someone who stopped being seen a long time ago." I turned my head, really looked at him. There was no mockery in his face, just quiet understanding. That same calm stillness he'd inherited from me, but softened with something I'd forgotten how to wear: openness. "Your mom and I haven't been close in years," I admitted. "I figured." We sat in silence, the kind that wasn't awkward but didn't feel safe either. And when he finally turned to face me, something shifted. "I didn't just come here because I couldn't sleep," he said. My chest tightened. "Why then?" His eyes met mine. "Because I wanted to know why you didn't stop." The question cracked through me like ice splitting down the center of a frozen lake. "I don't know," I said, but it was a lie. I did know. He leaned in slightly, not touching, just close enough for his breath to brush my cheek. "Was it because of me?" That line, that voice, that pause before it, it shattered every wall I'd spent years keeping intact. My breath caught and I couldn't look away. "Don't ask questions you don't want answers to." "What if I do?" I turned toward him slowly, our knees brushing now, the sheet still clutched around me like it could protect anything left of my resolve. You should go back to bed. He didn't move. Do you want me to? The moment hung there, bare and burning. I whispered, no. And that single word changed everything. The moment I told him not to leave, I felt the weight of it hit me like a flood. That single word, no, still lingered between us, heavy, undeniable. He didn't speak, didn't shift, just sat there beside me in the low light, his breathing steady but shallow, like he was trying to hold something back. Or maybe I was. I adjusted the sheet over my lap, suddenly aware of how bare I still was beneath it. But he didn't look down. His eyes stayed locked on mine, and there was something there I couldn't decipher. Not lust, not exactly, but not innocence either. Something in between. Something more dangerous. I should have said something, should have taken it back, told him I was confused, tired, not thinking straight. But I didn't, because even if I had said it, it wouldn't have been true. I'd never been more aware of my thoughts in my life. I just didn't know what to do with them. You're shaking, he said softly. I blinked, surprised. I hadn't even noticed. I'm fine, I murmured. No, you're not. He reached out then, hesitant but steady, and laid a hand gently on my arm. It was the kind of touch that shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. It meant everything. Because it wasn't just comfort. It was a question, a test, a line drawn between what if and what now. You don't have to be afraid of me, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm not afraid of you, I said too quickly. I'm afraid of myself. He looked down for a moment like he needed to think before his next words. You think you did something wrong earlier? I hesitated. Don't you? He shook his head slowly. I don't think I've ever seen someone that vulnerable before. I didn't feel disgusted. I felt something else. I swallowed hard. You weren't supposed to see me like that. Maybe not, he admitted, but I'm not pretending I didn't. He shifted closer on the bed and now our thighs touched. My body tensed, but I didn't pull away. I couldn't. My mind screamed at me to stop, to shut this down before it went any further, but my heart was already moving toward him, one uneven beat at a time. He watched me for a long moment, like he was waiting to see if I'd speak, but I couldn't find the words. It's weird, he said more to himself than to me. When I was younger, I used to think you were untouchable. Like you had all the answers, like you were a wall no one could break through. And now? I asked quietly. Now I see you, he said. Really see you. And it scares me how much I want to understand what's underneath. My throat went dry. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. His hand was still on my arm, fingers curling slightly now like they were claiming something unspoken. My body buzzed beneath his touch, every nerve alert, every instinct confused. You shouldn't feel this way, I whispered. But I do. And I shouldn't want this. But you do, he said, echoing me like it was the most obvious thing in the world. His face was closer now, not quite kissing distance but almost close enough for me to see the subtle twitch in his jaw, the flicker of conflict in his eyes. He wasn't sure either, but he wasn't running, and that terrified me in ways I couldn't explain. I don't know what we're doing, I confessed. Me neither, he said, but I'm not ready to stop. My breath shook as I looked at him, really looked at him. Not as my son, not as the boy I'd raised, but as someone entirely new. Someone who had grown up, changed, and somehow, without either of us seeing it, become someone I could feel this around. And that was the moment I realized this wasn't about loneliness anymore. It was about him. You don't have to do anything, I said, trying to stay upright, trying to keep some kind of line between us. You don't owe me understanding or whatever this is. He leaned in just a bit more. What if I want to? The question pressed into me like heat under my skin. I felt it everywhere and I had no answer. I don't want to break you, I whispered. Then don't, he said. Just let me in. His fingers slid down my forearm, wrapping lightly around my wrist. It wasn't possessive. It wasn't forceful. It was intimate, careful, the kind of touch that waits for permission but hopes it's already there. And then his forehead touched mine. Not a kiss, not yet, but it was enough to steal the breath from my lungs. I'm right here, he said. And I'm not afraid. The weight of that truth was heavier than I'd expected. I closed my eyes, let my head lean into his just slightly, just enough to feel the warmth between us hum. You should go, I said again one last time, weak, lying. Say it like you mean it, he whispered, and I will. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I opened my eyes and I didn't let go. The room felt different after I didn't tell him to leave, like something unseen had cracked open between us. And now, every breath was louder, every glance held longer. The silence wasn't heavy anymore, it was charged, almost alive. His forehead was still against mine, the space between our lips barely there. We hadn't kissed, not yet, but the moment stretched between us like it might break if either of us moved too fast. His fingers still circled my wrist, not gripping, just touching, like he was waiting for me to pull away. I didn't. You're still shaking, he whispered. I tried to breathe steady. It didn't work. Are you afraid of me? He asked, not sure if he wanted the answer. I didn't speak because the truth was I didn't know who I was afraid of anymore. My eyes drifted closed for a second, but I wasn't retreating. I was trying to breathe through the knot building in my chest. I felt like I was standing at the edge of something I couldn't come back from, and I didn't know whether to jump or run. Then I felt it, his hand on my jaw, gentle, warm, guiding. He tilted my face just slightly toward his. I opened my eyes. His were already on me, focused, calm but burning. Don't stop me, he whispered. And I didn't. His lips brushed mine barely at first. Not a kiss, not really, just a question shaped in breath and heat. My pulse throbbed in my throat and I stayed still just for a second to see if it would pass, if he'd realize what we were doing and pull away. But he didn't. He kissed me again, firmer now, slower, like he'd been waiting. My body responded before I gave it permission. My hand found his waist, tentative fingers curling into the soft fabric of his hoodie. I didn't pull him closer, not yet, but I didn't push him away either. His mouth moved against mine, careful, almost reverent, like he was exploring, like he didn't want to miss anything. When he finally pulled back, his eyes searched mine. Are you okay? I nodded barely. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I, he said, but I don't want to stop. He leaned in again and this time I met him halfway. The kiss deepened, grew warmer, more open. He tasted like mint and sleep, like something unfamiliar but already addictive. My hand moved without thinking, sliding up under the back of his hoodie. I felt skin, heat, muscle. He shivered when I touched him and something about that response made my breath catch. He shifted, kneeling slightly on the bed to close the gap between us. The motion made the blanket fall from around my waist, pooling at my thighs. His eyes dropped but not in shock. Just slow, quiet observation. I didn't mean to see you earlier, he said softly, but I haven't stopped thinking about it since. I swallowed hard, heart pounding. You're not supposed to say things like that. Then stop me. I couldn't. He moved closer, his hands found my waist, holding still, light, still gentle, like I could stop this at any second. But I didn't want to. I hadn't felt someone this close in so long, and it wasn't just physical. It was him. His scent, his body, his voice. The hoodie came off first, pulled over his head with a soft breath. I traced my fingers across his chest, the lines of muscle beneath skin. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, just watched me with a gaze that burned like it had nowhere else to go. When he leaned down, our bodies pressed fully together. I could feel his heartbeat, fast, nervous, matching mine. Our legs tangled, our hands moved, exploration slow and careful. No rush, no fear, just need. He kissed down my neck, lips brushing collarbone, chest, rib cage. Each touch left fire behind. Each pause made the next breath harder to hold. And then his hand slid lower, cupping me through the fabric of the sheet. I gasped, sharp and shallow, my body arching up toward him. Tell me to stop, he murmured against my skin. I didn't. I couldn't. My fingers gripped his shoulder, holding him there. His mouth met mine again, urgent now, hungrier. His hand moved with more confidence, sliding beneath the sheet, skin on skin. I let out a soft moan before I could catch it, and his breath stuttered in response. I felt him against me, hard, warm, pulsing with tension, and my body responded in kind. We pressed together, shifting, grinding. No words now, just sound. Breath, the rustle of sheets, and the thrum of something we both knew had been building for far too long. He moved over me, his hands supporting himself on either side of my head. I looked up at him, his hair falling in his face, his chest rising and falling with uneven breath. You're beautiful, he said, his voice cracking just slightly. You shouldn't say that. But I want to. His hand slid down again, wrapping around me, this time skin to skin, and I let go of the last shred of resistance I had. We didn't rush. We didn't speak. It was all quiet urgency, touches that lingered, hips that moved in rhythm, hands that clung like they were afraid of being let go. I felt myself unraveling with every motion, pulled apart by the way he looked at me, touched me, breathed my name. And when it finally happened, it wasn't loud, it wasn't wild. It was desperate, soft, two bodies meeting in silence, tangled in heat and confusion and something deeper than either of us could name. Afterward, he didn't move right away, just stayed there, chest against mine, breath warm against my neck. My hand found the back of his head, fingers threading through his hair. I didn't know what to say. He did. I didn't plan for this, he whispered, but I don't regret it. I blinked, heart still racing. You should. Do you? I closed my eyes, my throat tightening. No. We lay there in the dark, the silence stretching long. Nothing was the same now, and we both knew it. But neither of us pulled away. The morning light didn't come gently. It bled in through the slats of the blinds, thin lines carving stripes across the floor, across the bed, across us. I was already awake when it reached my eyes. I hadn't slept. His arm was still across my chest, heavy in the way that meant he hadn't woken up yet. His face was buried somewhere between my shoulder and the pillow, his breath slow and warm against my skin. And for a long moment I let myself stay in it, let myself feel what it was like to be touched without shame, held without distance, needed without words. But that feeling didn't last. Reality has a cruel way of slipping into the quiet. I carefully slid his arm off me inch by inch until I could sit up without waking him. The sheet fell around my waist again, same as the night before, only this time I felt exposed in a different way. Not physically. Emotionally raw. I stood slowly, letting the weight of the room settle on my shoulders as I crossed to the window. The light outside was still soft, morning haze clinging to the air like the house wasn't ready to wake up yet. And neither was I. Behind me he stirred. I didn't turn around. I thought you were still asleep, I said, voice quieter than I meant it to be. I was, he murmured. Then I wasn't. The bed creaked as he shifted. I heard the rustle of the sheet, the sigh he tried to hide. Silence stretched between us again. Not awkward, not yet, just full. You left the door unlocked, he added. I nodded slowly. I know. He sat up. I could feel him watching me even without looking, and I hated how much I wanted to turn back around, to go back to the bed, to him. But I didn't. What happens now? He asked, like he wasn't sure if this was the end or just the beginning of something they'd never survive. The question landed hard, heavy, like he dropped it into the center of the room and was waiting to see how many pieces it would break into. I turned then, slowly. My chest felt too tight, like every breath had to squeeze through a space that didn't want to let it go. I don't know, I said honestly. I really don't. He nodded once. That calm expression he always wore was cracking now. He looked older than he had yesterday, or maybe it was just that I was finally seeing him differently. Do you regret it? He asked. I paused. No, I said. But I probably should. He blinked, unsurprised. Me too, he said. Silence stretched, fragile. This can't happen again, I sighed. Why not? You're my son. Last night I wasn't. That's not what I meant. We crossed a line. Do you want to uncross it? I couldn't answer. He rose, sheet-clad, muscles gold in the light, expression blank. You say what we shouldn't, but not what you want. It doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Close, his scent enveloped me. I want you. I don't care what it means. It felt real. That's not how it works. Screw the world, he cracked. I'm tired of pretending. I saw him then, the man he'd become, who hadn't run. I didn't want to bury it either. I grazed his chest. I don't know how to carry this. Then don't carry it alone. Foreheads touched, breath mingled. I don't want to be your mistake. You're not. The one thing I can't let go of. We embraced, the light underlining the moment. Something would change. A knock. Solid thuds. I flinched. He grabbed his jeans. Keys in the car. Open up. My wife. Early. He looked at me. Panic, guilt, want. Go. Get dressed. Downstairs, his scent lingered. I feared my wife knowing, or that seeing her would feel wrong. It wasn't an accident. And if he came back, I wouldn't stop him.